wonderful people, and welcome to Relationship Talk with Stefania and Enolia. And today we have a very interesting topic, which is quite a big topic to talk about, but we're actually going to be breaking it down in possibly 2 or 3 parts. But Enolia is going to tell you a little bit more about it, but let me introduce the topic. The topic is trauma. How do we deal with trauma after we've left a relationship, a traumatic relationship, and then enter another relationship with all those memories, hurts, pains, and possibly anger that we're not aware of? So, Enolia, as always, I love chatting with you. So I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you. And hello, everybody. And we just want you to know that trauma is such a large topic that we're going to take this in parts. So if we're not covering the area of trauma that you might be interested in, hold on, because this is just part 1 and that'll come in a later episode. Okay. So we're talking about the fact that you and your partner have just met and you both left traumatic relationships. So let's make an analogy. That analogy is like you just picked up a heavy load of stones and you're carrying them with you everywhere that you go. And the weight of them is there, but you're not even acknowledging the fact that the weight of the previous relationship is there. And then you meet someone and you have the potentiality of that new relationship. How do you throw down those stones? How do you throw them down one by one? How do you throw down the whole load so that it doesn't impact your new relationship going forward? This takes a lot of wherewithal within us. And we're going to share with you on today's show some tips about how to let go of that trauma. But the first piece that you need, or I invite you to realize, is that when we've been through trauma, we are looking through the eyes of pain. We are looking through tainted eyes because those traumas that we've experienced, whether it's verbal, I hope it's not physical, but emotional, I mean, we are looking through the eyes of life that we don't want to encounter those again. We don't want to repeat them. And I say tainted eyes is because we're looking through the eyes of pain. And the first thing we have to do is to let that go. Because you will not be free to engage in a new relationship and start it from ground zero without the baggage of your previous relationship until you clear that pain. And one way to clear that pain is forgiveness. And when people say forgiveness, they're like, oh, please don't tell me that. The fact that the person was so abusive, the fact that the person was so this, so that, so the other, of the relationship that I just left. But the forgiveness is about forgiving yourself for having had to encounter that relationship and letting go of that pain and leaving it back where it took place. It's about moving past the story and leaving the story behind and not keeping that story ever living in front of you such that you're carrying it with you and you're not moving through it. So if I've gotten traumatically hurt in my previous relationship and I don't forgive myself within that relationship, then everything I see or every person I see is a verbal abuser. Every encounter I have is I'm waiting for that verbal abuse to take place. Every relationship I enter into, I'm waiting for that degradation to take place because I was always degraded in my previous relationship. I have to take back my power. And this is both men and women. Take back my power by forgiving self and saying that I will not look through the eyes of pain for every encounter I have moving forward. What's your take on that, Stefania?
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you, Enolia. You really explained that really thoroughly. And I've got to agree with you. Yes, there is, it's like carrying a bag of stones. And I often use the analogy of the fridge, having a fridge full of, rotten vegetables. And, what do you do when you have to buy new, fresh, vegetables and fruits? You've got to clear that fridge out, because if you're going to, keep that old, rotten, food in there, you're not going to be able to put nice, fresh, healthy vegetables and fruits and whatever foods you want to buy. So that's exactly the same thing. Often we're looking out, we're looking external for someone to fill that void, to heal that trauma, to help us through and develop a wonderful relationship. But half the time, most people don't even know they're actually got that trauma. They got fear, and they, sometimes, situations trigger off, trigger something inside them, but they don't really know. They don't really know. So it's like a repetition. But half the time, what I found is a lot of people don't even know they're actually carrying this trauma. A lot of people don't know. So yes, forgiveness is a main one, retelling the story, because really, what do we do? And it depends on how long ago the trauma was. Usually it goes way back. It can even go back to childhood trauma that we, carry through into our adult life. And when it comes to relationships, and if you've had a bad start, particularly as a child, teenager, or early, 20s, and you're in your 40s, 30s, 50s, I mean, that's a long time to be carrying that hurt and pain. And we can really definitely run into a lot of problems when we enter a relationship. And always, we're not looking within. We often blame, the other person as to why it's not working. And that's the really the hardest point, is taking responsibility, taking back your power, and acknowledging that, yeah, I'm actually, repeating the same pattern, behavioral habits, and entering relationships in that same mindset. So you mentioned, forgiveness, and you mentioned, changing your story and loving self. And I think, we spoke a lot about loving self in our previous videos, which has been really good. I think that that's really helped, and it's kind of set us up for what we're talking about now. And I have found, and I even talk through my own experiences, forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is really difficult. And for some unknown reason, we just hang on to that, not forgiving, not letting go, because we feel that if we do, that's going to kill us. But in actual fact, it's actually when we let go, that's actually freeing us. It frees us.
Yes. And I want to jump right in here for this, because I have so much I want to say to everyone. First of all, how do you know that you haven't gotten over your trauma? Because what you said is very, very palpable. Okay. You know that you haven't gotten over your trauma, whether it was from childhood or whether it was present day, when you're still talking about the story. When you are still rehashing that story, or you go, I am this way because when I was little, this happened to me. No, what you've done is you've embraced that story. You've cloaked that story around you like a pair of clothing or a coat, and you've just wrapped yourself in that story, so much so that you refuse to peel it off, and you take that story everywhere that you go. If you were talking about that story 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 1 year from now, you are still in that story. You are stuck. You are stagnant. You got to let go of that story. Let it go. Move past it. It's behind you. You look at that story. You learn the lessons from that story. You understand what it is you're not going to allow to repeat in that story, and you let it go. That's the first and foremost awareness of knowing that you're stuck. The second thing that I would say is that when we move forward and we realize that we need to forgive ourselves, the story didn't happen overnight. And sometimes they do happen overnight, but forgiveness doesn't happen overnight. So we talked in our previous episode about loving self. If you can go in the mirror every single day and say, I love you, I forgive you, you are powerful, you are worthy, you deserve what it is that is beautiful and fresh and loving. And you have to do it for 3 or 4 months in a row, then do it for 3 or 4 months in a row. You know, our burdens don't come overnight. Our ways of behaving don't come overnight. So why do we think that forgiveness is instantaneous? It is not instantaneous. It takes work. You have to work at it. And how do you know you've moved past the story? That when something triggers that story, and you don't react in a negative way, or something negative or foul or derogatory doesn't come out of your mouth regarding that story, then you've moved on. When the first thought isn't the negative thought, but the first thought is, oh, I know that door and I learned that lesson and I've moved on from that lesson, that's when you've gotten over the story. And these are really, really important, because if you can't go through these iterations, you carry that baggage into your next relationship. And let's talk about that next relationship. I'm going to introduce a word. The word is called triggers. Are you triggered in your relationship now, currently, from previous relationships?
Yeah.
You know, oh, he said this to me and it reminded me of X when I was with my ex. And my ex said this, this, and this, and it always made me cringe, whether it was talking about money, talking about this, talking about that. Oh, when my ex used to talk about money, I always had to account for every single penny and I had to report to him and I had to this and I had to that. Or, oh, when it comes to other men, he was always jealous. So I automatically cringe back if certain words are said or certain viewpoints are brought forward. And we have to unload that package. How do men unload those triggers? And I will talk about it from a woman's perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how do men unload those triggers? How do they deal with the triggers? What was the question, Enolia? Sorry. How do they deal
How
with
do they deal with the triggers when a woman they're in a new relationship with a woman says something and it's like, oh, that reminds me of my ex.
Right. Okay. Well, men seem to retreat, take 10 steps 10 steps backwards. Everything's going really, really good until, something triggers within them. And unlike women, I think women are more reactive and will blurt it out. Men will kind of step back and zip it up, just sort of step back and watch what's happening, and then have a retake, a film of their previous relationships or whatever's happened in the past. It's like a movie in their mind, replaying the whole thing and just saying, these are signs. She's exactly like her. All women are the same. They all think the same. They're all after my money. Let's take that for example. Women are all gold diggers. She's just after my money. Maybe with something she may have said relating to money, but not relating to his money. So see how that fine line, but the fact that maybe money was mentioned, and he may have had a bad experience with his last girlfriend where she's taken him for to the cleaners. He's like going to be associating anything to do with money with that experience that he had with her, with his last girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? So men and often they're not aware of it. So I think this is really good that we can bring up certain examples, both from a male's perspective and a female's perspective. And so men will retreat, they go silent, and then that'll drive the women crazy, I'm sure. And you can share that part, Enolia, that because well, what happened? What did I say? And he's got all this going on, and she's then trying to get it out of him, and then he's feeling like he's been attacked, he's been pressured, he's been cornered, and yeah, it just snowballs from there, basically, from a man's point of view. But I'm happy to.
So from a woman's point, yeah, from a woman's point of view, and I'm already from a woman's point of view, we feel the same way. We do. We want to retreat back, especially if it's traumatized us. It makes us step back and think twice about that person. It makes us want to go, oh my God, am I going to relive this all over again? I actually think that we retreat back into the pain, immediately back into the pain, and almost have that reaction as if that pain is taking place all over again. And we might lash out at the person trying to defend ourselves as if we had to defend ourselves in the previous relationship. Whereas that person that we're in relationship with may not be thinking that none whatsoever. And if they are, then that's your flag. But the thing about it is that how do we get over this point? And I want to invite both sides to do something that's so counterintuitive. I want to invite both sides to be vulnerable. I want to invite both sides to say automatically, let's pause this conversation. What you just said triggered me. What you just said not only triggered me, it brought me back to my previous relationship, and this doesn't work. How you spoke to me, or the exact words that you said, doesn't work for me. And when it brings me back into that previous relationship or that previous feeling that I had when in a relationship, it makes me shut down. And if we want to move forward, you can't speak with me with those particular words, or you can't say that particular phrase or that tone of voice that you use. We need to shift. And I invite men to do the same. Hey, how you just spoke to me, that doesn't work for me. My previous relationship, there was a lot of shouting. Please don't raise your voice. I can listen to what you say. I can have that conversation with you, but don't. But I invite both sides to dare to be vulnerable and talk about it right up front, right in the middle. Meet each other in the middle where you're both feeling vulnerable. You're both exposing a little bit of your pain and that frailty.
Absolutely.
And discuss it. And then get over it, because then you understand what's triggering each other. And when you both understand it, you can acknowledge it, you can heal it, and you can move forward, and you don't take it out on the person that you're with.
Definitely.
What do you think?
And if I can just add to that, Enolia,
Yes.
It's absolutely right. Both men and women, coming to the party and discussing. It's not just the woman coming first forward or the man. Don't even expect your partner to make the first move. You're aware of it. You've got the tools. Make the move, because your partner may not know how. But if you present it in a way that you're creating a safe space for them, a comfortable, safe space, watch, your partner is going to open up, because you're coming from the angle of understanding, acknowledgement, compassion, and hey, I'm ready to listen. And this is what I was going to say, really important to listen to each other. So
yes,
as each party presents their case, so to speak, right? Give your partner the time, the respect, and the space to say what they want to say. Don't jump in. Really be a good listener. I really stress that, because I think, you can have these conversations, but if you're cutting in and you're not letting each one of you to finish and express fully what you want to say, you've got another fire within a fire, and it's going to create a huge, volcanic eruption, I call it. You're not really solving anything. You're creating more problems on top of the problem. So I really think it's important to listen. And when you're not sure whether your partner has finished, a simple question: have you finished?
Yes.
Have you finished? Because the minute that person says, yes, I have, well, then, you are allowed to speak. And if that person butts in, if your partner, interrupts you, you say, hang on a minute, I gave you your time, your space. I listened. Please listen to me. You can take control of that conversation because you're giving the respect. So you expect that back too. I don't think there's any harm in reiterating that back to your partner while you're in this discussion. And again, I think it's important to know, I mean, when is it good to pick up the conversation again? It could be straight after feeling triggered, right? But sometimes
I feel it's directly when it's happening. I feel you time out the conversation, because what happens is that if you don't, you're already triggered. So you're already in a space of reacting as if what the previous partner did for you. The reaction is what the previous partner has provoked from you, and not what the present partner is actually doing. The present partner is a different person. So they won't react the same way as the previous partner did. It's a conditioning. It's a conditioning of an automatic response, because that's what a trigger is. You feel put in a corner and you feel like you have to scratch your way out.
right.
The verbal phrase that took place puts you in a corner and you feel like you have to fight your way out. And this is a conditioning because you felt shut in or you felt put against the wall previously.
Right.
That's what a trigger is all about. So you're absolutely right. They must listen fully, and not only listen fully. I would even invite, like, I use a technique, the medicine wheel. We call it the talking stick. It's as if you gave the person the stick, and you cannot speak until that person hands that stick right back over to you. And then after you've both fully listened to each other, not interjecting, not butting in, don't even give them tissues when they're crying, because that's a distraction from the conversation. Listen. But not only that, I would invite both sides to then reflect back what they heard. So when you hear this, it means that your reaction was like this because in your previous relationship, you felt put against the wall and you felt you had to lash out because they were always taxing you about, what did you do? How did you spend your money? Where did your money go? Blah, 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 blah. Or where were you? How were you? How long did it take you? Blah, 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 blah. You felt put against the wall. And so when I say this, that triggers that. I won't say this. I will not do that to you. Or please do not do that to me. Exactly. And I think that that's so important. And therein lies the first thing, which is communication. Communication between the sexes, the ability to listen, the ability to both allow you to heal, because once you both acknowledge that that's taking place and that these are triggers, then you're not carrying, you've just unloaded the rocks. You just unloaded some of those stones off of your back. And I say some because they're going to be multiple things that you're going to need to do this process with to carry on a new relationship forward and unloading all of the baggage from the last.
And I just want to mention another thing too, Enolia, which, in some cases, not everyone's got great communication skills, right? Not everyone is going to say, okay, I'm listening, I'm all ears. No.
Right?
We'll have a partner who's going to challenge us and, possibly give us the silent treatment, stonewall us, where you are bringing the topic, the subject, the hurt, the trigger to the table, and your partner is not prepared to listen. They just they shut it down. I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this. I've gone through a lot of this where I just get shut down because I'm a talker. I want to talk about it, and I've sometimes picked my times and maybe later, right now, because what we want, if you're a high I say emotional person that's got to express and quite sensitive and deal with the topic at hand immediately, that other person may not want to. just because that's their defense mechanism. That's how they defend themselves. That's how they protect and deal with situations. Because if I shut it down, I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to explain myself. And that pain's going to go away because I'm just going to shut it down. See you later.
Yes.
Fort Knox. So tell me, Enolia, how do we deal with, the stonewalling, the silent treatment in our partners?
So what we do is we pause the conversation, and if they are stonewalling, then we go, okay, I'm going to allow you space, and when you are ready to speak, we will have this conversation. I'm going to give you the time that you need to process what I've said, having stopped the conversation, and whatever time you need to come forward to have this conversation, then I will. And this is really important because you men, I'm calling you out. A lot of men like to walk away. A lot of men, when they shut down, they want to leave. They want to leave the space. They don't want to deal with it at a moment. They don't want to argue with it at the moment. I invite you to say, okay, let me think about this for a while and I'll come back to the conversation. And if you need to take a walk, take the walk. But I also invite the men to start limiting that walking away and learning how to deal with processing at the time. That's the invitation. That if you need to take the walk because of your anger and you're so hurt that you want to lash out, then take the walk. And let your partner know that you will be back. Not just walk out and not say a word, but that you will be back after you've thought about it for a while. And then I invite the men to shorten that time such that you don't need to walk out. Learn how to control your emotions enough. But ladies, we can also make sure that we don't trigger it. We know how to dig a knife in, and we know how to push the knife and push it and push it and push it. And I invite the ladies not to dig, to give the space to allow processing and thoughtfulness to take place. So on both sides.
On both sides.
So that you can have those hard conversations in between. But it is being patient with each other because, again, remember, in the end, you love each other. In the end, you're doing this out of the care and love and concern for the person and wanting to be closer with that person and wanting to lay this aside. That's the goal. The goal is to come together. So if you can remember while you're processing, you can remember in your anger, you can remember while you're being triggered, if you can remember that this is a person that I'm dealing with that I love. And in loving that person, I'm going to make the effort to rise above my anger, my emotional state, my everything, and be vulnerable and put it aside for a moment to have a conversation. But you both need to acknowledge you need to be mature enough to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't work when one person is and the other person isn't. Or if you're just starting out, and I know I'm going on, but I gotta get this out. If you're just starting out, realize that it's going to take the person a little bit of time to adjust to a new way that you're approaching problems, a new way. And say it, you know what? I'm approaching this differently. I'm not going to approach this attacking you. I want to have a conversation and I'm going to dare to be vulnerable. If you can dare to just listen and not hurt my feelings because I'm being vulnerable with you. And if you can dare to step up to the plate and be vulnerable with me, and let's just get to the bottom line. The real argument isn't this. The real argument is that when you said this, it hurt me and it brought me back. And when I reacted to you, where did I take you? And daring to step into the strength and the confidence of your love and sharing this information with each other so that you both know and can move past the story of being triggered.
Yeah.
And creating drama where there doesn't exist in your new relationship.
And I'd say also looking at this, not as like, oh, it's happening again, like it's what I'm doing. I'm just attracting the same type of woman. I'm always attracting, XYZ in my life, look at it as an opportunity, like you said, to take the time and approach this whole thing differently. Yeah. And I say this both to men and women, but particularly to men, where, look at it as an opportunity to take a different road. You're presented with the same situation, but tackle it differently as well. Because I'm also a great believer that we always attract what it is that we need to learn about ourselves. So the fact that we are being triggered, I strongly believe that there's something within us that needs, looking at as well. We need to put that mirror back on us, because that person is reflecting back on you what it is you need to heal. So look at it as an opportunity to, move forward and heal from, conscious trauma, or maybe subconscious trauma, which is just sitting in there, but not really, you're not aware of it. Yeah, that's what I
am
have to
so
say.
in agreement with you. Yes, because it's like, take responsibility for your own personal growth. If you want to grow beyond that relationship that was previous and you want to learn from it, then in your new relationship, take the responsibility of personal growth by daring to be vulnerable and learning from your mistakes and not repeating them over. And you can recognize it, because if it's like, oh no, here we go again with a different person, right there is the opportunity. Right there, you're already flagging that you need personal growth in this area. And to dare to step into your own truth and your own personal growth is to dare to be vulnerable, not defensive, and dare to let your emotional state be known and not reactionary. And to dare to meet the person in the middle ground and open it up and have it out, and not just decide that I can't handle this, here it is again, I'm going to run away. Because when you run away, then you're staying stuck in the story. And I'll tell you, you're destined to repeat the same thing, relationship after relationship after relationship, because you did not take the personal responsibility of your own growth state to grow past the story. So I go back to what I said in the beginning, which is, if you're seeing the same story over and over again, you've wrapped it on and you've put it on like a warm coat, and you use it as an excuse to justify that you're not going to grow up.
Exactly. And like a warm coat, it's comfortable, isn't it? It's an old, worn, old coat that it slips on, always feels comfy. And, I know about you, but I like wearing some of my old stuff all the time. Doesn't matter how old it is. I just,
yes.
But, old is not sticking to it and feeling victim, because that's what happens. We end up being a victim in that coat, I believe. We just, yeah.
That's so important, because just because I'm kind does not mean I'm weak. And I'm saying this to both men and women. Just because I'm kind and I dare to step up being vulnerable does not portray that you are a weak person. On the contrary, it makes you stronger, because the person who is weak always has to put on the facade of strength.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to repeat that again. And I think this is true for both men and women. The person that is weak has to put on the facade of defensiveness and strength, and I can't ever be penetrated, and I can't ever show an emotional state. It's a facade. We all have them. But the person that is strong will dare to say the most vulnerable piece and show the pain and show exactly where the sore spot is, and dare to allow it to get air, heal, and get that scab over the wound so that it can fully heal. And it may not happen once. You might have to go through this process many, many times, but if you go through this process, you will heal.
Absolutely. No doubt. No doubt. And there's no amount of times. We don't know how many times it takes to, heal and then have a scab and then find that scab's come off and it starts bleeding again.
Yes.
So then we have to just
Yes.
clean it out again and, disinfect it and put a Band-Aid on and hopefully get another scab that it's going to totally heal. And when the scab comes off, it's not going to bleed again, because if it does,
Yes.
that means we have to treat it again, right? So it's different for everybody. It's definitely different. But the quicker we change that mindset, the quicker we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and really just be nice and nurturing, self-care, all that with ourselves, the quicker the journey to, that beautiful, peaceful, serene place that nothing is going to perturb you. No woman, no man, just
Right.
you are in your element, in an alignment with where you want to be. So yeah, it's been a great conversation, Enolia.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
I love it. So
And I want to share a couple of tips
mhm.
for this particular piece. You didn't even have to ask me because I'm so excited. We're like, oh, I got to share this. I got to share this.
Right.
So, first and foremost tip, ground rules for when someone calls a timeout. In other words, when you are triggered, you and your partner should have ground rules for the discussion. So, in other words, if I come to you and I say, time out, you just triggered me, what are our ground rules for having this discussion? One, I am not going to attack the person in their vulnerable state. Ground rule number one, you do not, when somebody is pouring their heart out, whether you agree, disagree, appalled, understanding, it doesn't matter. Listen unconditionally.
Mm-hmm.
Do not attack the person in that vulnerable state. If you don't like what you're hearing, then you say, I hear what you're saying. I acknowledge what you're saying. Let me sit with it a while. And that's it. Because no discussion is better than an attack. And if you need time to process, take the time to process. And that would be step number 2. Take the time to think about what you heard. If you have to invite the person back to a conversation a few hours later, or let me take a walk, let me clear my head, let me think about what you said, and let me come back to you. Pause the discussion, take the time that you need to process, and then come back and enter back into the discussion with the same ground rules, knowing that you are talking about something very, very near and dear and very hurtful to someone's heart, and that you are willing to do it in a respectful manner. And the third thing is, be comfortable enough to understand that you've been triggered and pause the conversation. Pause it, because if you don't take the time to acknowledge these hurts in your new relationship, then you build it on a foundation of being triggered, and that is a destination that is not a happy one. So if you want a happy destination, work on letting go of those stones that you're carrying until the bag is empty, till you can have months of days where you're just happy with each other and you're not triggered from each other and you're not getting on each other's nerves, or you're not, going, oh, that part of him I don't like, because you've discussed it all.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
those would be my tips.
Okay, so can I just add to those? So
Absolutely, please do.
definitely, I agree with the listening and giving space, to the other party, listening, and also, being vulnerable to speak your truth, be authentic, and don't worry about,
Yes.
I'm going to hurt her or I'm going to hurt him. He's not going to like what I'm going to say. No, when you speak from the heart, when you speak with, a place from love and authentically, that person is going to listen to you because you're vibrating that energy. You're delivering it with
Yes.
love, right? Not with attack. So be vulnerable and be authentic, and don't worry about what the response may be, because it may not be nice, but that's not for you to carry, first of all, right? And when you're stepping away and you want to process it, and I say this to to men and women, but mainly men at this stage where they need to process it. And even women, I guess, don't process it where you keep replaying the scenario in your head. Okay.
Yes.
Because I feel that sometimes it's blocked energy. So release that energy. And that may mean
Absolutely.
don't even think about it, close the door to it, go and do a workout, go for a run, go and, I don't know, do something. I usually do something physical, because if I work it out and go to the gym, I'm just like pushing weights and I exert that energy. But for others, it may be writing. For others, it may be putting some music on, just going for a walk, walking the dog, play with the kids, whatever. But totally remove yourself from that state and put yourself in a total different state, not even thinking about it, because you are releasing that energy that needs to come out, because it might be anger, frustration, disappointment, rejection, whatever you felt at that particular time being triggered. Okay, so use that time wisely to release that energy.
Yes.
And thirdly, as you said, taking responsibility of that. And I'd say go a step further. Seek help. And when I say seek help, it doesn't mean like, oh, I've got to go to a psychologist or counselor. No, really, it may even start with books. It may even start with self-help books. Or if you want to fast track this situation and you've been in this situation from relationship to relationship to relationship, and you're with this woman and you really love her, or you're with this man and you really love him and you really want to make it work, then, seek professional help. Get a mentor, get a coach, get someone that is going to specifically help you in that area. And I don't say it because we're coaches, Enolia, but if something's wrong with your car, what do? You take it to a mechanic. If the tires are flat and there's a hole there, you get checked. There's a hole in that rubber, that tube, you get it repaired so you can keep rolling. And that's the same thing with self, the same thing with your relationships, the same thing with your relationship with yourself. Work on yourself first. Get all that happening. Seek help. Be guided through these stages, because it can be painful, and you may need someone that will, guide you through this journey, because it is a journey. And I always encourage people to, it's an investment. We spend money on, insurance. We insure our homes, we insure our cars, we take out life insurance, we do all that. We spend heaps of money on that, right? But we're not spending money on self right now in the present, that's going to help us in our day-to-day relationships, whether it be intimate, whether it be, family, work. They're all relationships. They all intertwine with each other.
Yes. And I would caution, don't go to the good old boys and good old buddies who aren't in relationship.
Yes.
They're not mirrors of exactly the situation that you're in.
That's
all
right.
I want to caveat that with, you said professional help, not your buddies. I love your parents, but sometimes they are not in the same space and time frame that you're in. That's up to you, but really professional help.
Exactly. And not another friend that's going through the same trauma as well.
Right.
Because that's definitely not going to help. That's definitely
we do that. We go to these people and we seek, something really serious, and they're in a whole nother time, space, and time frame, or not even in relationship. And the last thing you need to go here is, oh, I'd mess around then. The heck with that. Why would you take that from the person? Well, look at the person that you're seeking out, and look at their life, and look at their relationship. Mm-hmm. And make sure that they're in the same time and space that you're in. Actually, I wouldn't use that, but that's me.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Wow, that was great, Enolia. Thank you.
That was so great. I hope that our audience gets a lot out of this.
Exactly.
And we will go with part 2.
Exactly.
And I just wanted to share.
Yes.
You know, that part 2 will be you're in a relationship. You're in a relationship and a trauma takes place.
Mm.
So that's what we will talk about in part 2.
Forward to that. I look forward to that one. So, Enolia, as always, we end it with how can people reach you or reach us?
Yes, I can be reached through www.enolia, that's ENOLIA.live on my website. And you can sign up for my subscription, my newsletter once a month, or just sign up or contact me through my website. I can also be reached and followed on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Twitter. So I'm on all of the social medias. If you want to hear more about our relationship talk with previous episodes, my YouTube channel, as well as yours, but my YouTube channel and my other work that I've done, I am a coach. I will work with you in sessions. I do energy medicine. So I welcome you to come and explore my website, see the services that I offer, and I'd be happy to work with you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And for any gentlemen out there, of course, I love calling you all gentlemen. You can reach me at thegentlemansquare.com. And I also have YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, Facebook. You can reach me there. I have programs. I've also got an ebook that you can grab on 9 ways to create juicier connections with women by mastering the language of attraction. So I invite you to come along and check that out, or maybe just DM me if there's any questions, anything you want to know. I'll be only too happy to respond. And if there's any topics, particularly both ladies and gentlemen, that you'd like us to talk about, please leave a comment, and we'll only be too happy to discuss it, won't we, Enolia?
Absolutely. We're here. We're waiting for you.
All right. So we send you love, we send you passion, and we'll see you next episode.
Next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.